Check this out, right? Deep beneath the Appalachian Mountains, there's a horde of terrifying mutants that's waiting to feast on human flesh. 50 years ago, an entire town disappeared without a trace, and now these scientists are out looking for answers. But what they're about to find is worse than anything that they could ever imagine. The creatures hunt at night, and if they catch you, they're going to make you wish that you'd never been born. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the mine mutants in The Devil Below. This mine is about to turn into a hunting ground. After another long shift at the Shookham Hills coal mine, a worker and his son Derek are getting ready to head home for the night. While the kid goes to get his tools, his father hears a scream as he's suddenly ambushed by some kind of terrifying monster that charges at him from the mist. The man rushes back to help him, but he's quickly knocked down and pierced by a razor-sharp spike on the creature's hand, leaving him completely paralyzed, and there's nothing that he can do but watch as his son is dragged away screaming into the cave, making one victim down with 9 more to go. Many decades later, this explorer, Ariane here, is looking over news articles and other evidence from the disaster at the mine. She's been hired by a team of scientists to track down its original location, hoping to discover the truth about what really happened there. But that was their biggest mistake. The search takes them through a small town where Ari decides to stop for some water and other supplies. Telling the others to wait by the car, she heads inside and asks the clerk if he can help her out with some directions to the coal mine. At first, the man acts like he has no idea what she's talking about, but when she presses him for more information, he not so subtly suggests that the 5 of them need to go back the way that they came. It's an obvious warning, but for Ari, this just means that she's getting close, and he's already told her everything that she needs to know. Going back to join the others, they're beginning to drive away when Ari notices a suspicious truck passing by on the other side of the road. Concerned, she hits a quick turn, trying to throw them off. Sure enough, the truck takes the same turn, and Ari hits the gas as she tries to speed away, realizing that they're being chased. Okay, it looks like somebody doesn't want Ari and her friends here poking around. This would normally be the time where I'd say that they should just take the guy's advice and go home. But Ari and her team are actually out here looking for trouble, and now they know that they're getting close to finding it. Whether that's a good idea remains to be seen, but they'll never get anywhere as long as they've got somebody following them, so they need to figure out what to do about this creep first. Since they're rolling 5 people deep, they might feel the urge to pull over and give this guy the hands. But that would be a big mistake. It seems like Ari and Jamie are the only ones with any self-defense experience, and they don't know if this guy has friends, what kind of weapons he's packing, or even what his intentions are. So the best choice is to avoid finding out at all costs. We can't get the authorities involved either, because if there's some kind of small-town conspiracy going on, then they could be involved as well, which means that they're going to have to handle this for themselves. They need to remain calm and focus on driving, since one wrong decision could cause them to crash, and the last thing that they want is this guy catching up with them. Since he's trying to chase us out of town, leaving the area and coming back later would be the easiest way to lose him. But Ari takes the added pressure as a sign that they're getting close, and she's not about to run away after coming this far. Instead, she needs to focus on putting as much distance between them and the chasing vehicle as possible, while the others pelt it with anything in the truck that they can afford to lose. By driving erratically and trying to distract the other driver however they can, they might be able to force the vehicle to crash, allowing them to either escape or try to confront the guy and find out what he wants. If they can break his line of sight and find a side trail, then they can wait for the truck to pass, and either follow them instead or go back to freely search the area, which is exactly what Ari here is about to do. It turns out that she's actually pretty good at this, which probably explains why these researchers here decided to hire her. Now, if Ari accidentally crashes her truck, then the best thing for them to do would be to immediately flee into the deeper woods on foot, getting as far away from the road as they can. This would force the stalker to either stop chasing them or get out to keep chasing on foot, which should at least level the playing field just a bit, but they're about to realize that angry rednecks are the last thing that they need to be worried about. The crew speeds down the winding country road, with the truck closing in quickly, barely managing to hold on as they leave the town and find themselves on a more isolated path. Just when it's starting to look like they'll never get rid of him, the truck suddenly comes to a stop, allowing them to get some distance. As soon as they're out of sight, Ari quickly pulls off down a side trail, and seconds later, they watch as the truck speeds by in the direction that they were just headed. Although the rest of the crew hasn't figured it out yet, her instincts tell her that the guy was trying to chase them away from something, and she thinks that they'll find what they're looking for if they go back to the place where he stopped. Her hunch turns out to be right, and they pull off down a dirt path that leads them deeper and deeper into the forest, ignoring the warning signs until they finally end up in front of a padlocked gate. Getting out of the truck, Ari has to stop the group's leader, Darren, from touching the gate, pointing out that the fence is electrified. While the others are trying to figure out how to get past it, she's already throwing a grappling hook up a leaning tree, lowering herself down on the other side and signaling for the scientists to follow. The group stops a few times to gather some samples as they follow the trail deeper into the forest, walking for miles until they eventually find a place by the river to set up camp. That night, while they're all gathered around the campfire, Darren explains his theory that a fire in the mines caused a sinkhole that swallowed up the entire town. It's the most likely explanation, but his partner Sean here has other ideas. He's heard that the place wasn't a coal mine at all, but instead it was really an experiment by the government to see how far down they could drill, and they accidentally ended up opening a portal straight to hell. The others laugh it off, convinced that it's just an urban legend, but soon they're gonna find out just how right he really is. Meanwhile, somewhere nearby, a group of locals are gathered around an electrified grate placed over a hole in the ground. They're concerned to see that something tried to damage the wire, as if whatever they're keeping down there is trying to get out. One of their friends is out patrolling another area of the property, and they call over the radio to warn him that he needs to be careful. Reaching another hole in the ground, he sees something that already tried to get out here too, leaving a suspicious hole in the fence. Thinking that he hears something, the man foolishly leans in for a closer look, only for him to suddenly be pierced straight through the side of the head by an alien-like claw, making 2 victims down with 8 more to go. At the campsite, Darren asks Ari if she'd be willing to go with them into the mine, but she respectfully turns him down, saying that her job is over once she gets them there. Curious, she asks him what they're hoping to find, and he replies that they're looking for a special type of coal called anthracite, which could help explain the bizarre disaster that happened there all those years ago. The group hits the trail again in the morning, and it isn't long before they begin to notice something strange. All along this part of the path, someone set up a bunch of emergency sirens, and they look too new to be from the original coal mine. Up ahead, they notice a mysterious column of white smoke, and it's rising up from another one of those holes in the ground. The scientists move in to take a sample, but that's when Ari notices the same truck from the night before speeding towards them down the trail, forcing them all to take cover until it passes. Whoever it is must know that they're out there, so Ari tells the others to pick up the pace before they get themselves caught. Okay. This expedition is starting off badly already, and it looks like it's only a matter of time before the whole thing goes too far. It seems like Sean is the only one asking the important questions here, and there have been a lot of red flags popping up that they've been too distracted to notice so far. Hopping the fence left them with limited options for getting back out if there's trouble, and that was just to get on the property. Then we've got little things like the sirens and the security cameras all over the trail, and the shiny new padlocks closing up the gate. The point is that none of this stuff is from the 1970s. It's all recent and being maintained, which means that someone is watching, and probably has been since they first got into town. Plus, they left their whole ass truck right at the gate while making no attempt whatsoever to hide it, so they shouldn't be surprised that they just ran into their friend from the night before. Knowing that the truck guy is out there looking for them is intimidating, but just like Ari pointed out the day before, it's also a sign that they're getting close to what they're looking for. He probably either saw them on the cameras or noticed their truck at the gate, and is now searching the path between the entrance and the mine to find them. So logically, it makes sense that he's headed towards the mine. If they want to find it, all that they have to do now is follow him, and they'll probably lead them straight there. They have to be careful doing this, of course, because if he catches them, then who knows how he might react. This makes stealth a top priority, so they need to stay off the trail where they know the guy will be looking for them, and away from open areas where they can easily be seen. Instead, they'll want to use the natural terrain for concealment and move as quietly and carefully as possible in the direction that they saw the truck driving. They should stop driving every once in a while to listen for any sounds in the woods around them and keep an eye out for any more security cameras or even dangerous traps as they get closer to their goal. Now, if the truck happens to spot them, then they need to do something that I rarely suggest, and that's split up. This gives everyone the best chances of escaping by dividing the stalker's attention, and allows you to use the other people in your group as meat shields while you run for your life. The key is to immediately run straight into the deep woods, since getting away from the road will make it impossible for the truck to follow, and force the driver to get out on foot if he wants to keep chasing. Then all they would need to do is break their line of sight, find a good hiding spot, and wait for them to pass. This also gives you the opportunity to set up an ambush and turn the tables on your attacker, but for now, we should try our best to avoid confrontation for as long as we can. Not much farther up ahead, the team stops to investigate another source of smoke, while Ari and Sean press on to the top of a nearby hill. Calling to the others, they all stand there in shock as they realize that they've finally found what they were looking for, and they can see what's left of the abandoned town in the valley down below. Making their way down to the buildings, they decide to start exploring an old general store, filming the discovery with their cameras as proof that the town still exists. Inside, they notice that all of the residents' belongings are still in the same place, as if they all picked up and left without taking a single thing. Darren activates a device to check the carbon monoxide levels, but finds that the air is still clean enough for them to breathe. They aren't sure why the locals would have left in such a hurry, but that's when Ari opens the door on the other side of the building, and they see the largest sinkhole yet in the middle of a giant deserted valley, where it looks like the entire town just collapsed straight into the ground. The scientists immediately rush down to investigate the pit, finding that it's covered up by a makeshift electric fence like the ones that they'd first seen back on the trail. Their security guard Jamie easily unhooks the jumper cables that supply the power, allowing his brainiac friends here to cut a hole in the fence. But they're about to realize that they should have never set foot in this town. With some help from Sean, their geologist Terry lowers a scanner down into the hole, checking it for any signs of the mineral anthracite. They have to keep going all the way until it eventually hits the bottom, but when Terry runs his scan, they realize that they've all just hit the jackpot, and the place is full of exactly what they needed. Just when they're about to pull it back up, Terry tells the others to hold on for a second, acting like he hears a strange noise in his headphones. Putting it on the speaker, they can all hear what sounds like a deep growling noise coming from somewhere underground, like there's some sort of animal living down in the tunnels. Before they can figure out what this means, something pulls on the scanner, and the rope suddenly wraps around Terry's feet, dragging him down into the hole with superhuman strength. The others sprint after him, looking down into the pit where they can see the man lying on the cave floor, but the creature returns and drags him back into the darkness, making 3 victims down with 7 more to go. Okay, well damn, I guess this guy just brought a whole new meaning to getting the shaft. For a geologist, he sure did drop like a rock, but on the bright side, at least he probably has good health insurance. Hey Terry, can you hear me down there? I just checked the scanner and it says you f***ed up. I'm just gonna say it. These guys just might be some of the dumbest scientists that we've ever seen, and believe me, the bar was already low. They managed to ignore every single warning sign along the way and went about this obviously illegal and highly dangerous trespassing mission with all of the stealth and professionalism of a bull in a china shop. They literally just got out of a car chase and immediately said, you know what? A guy just tried to chase us away from this exact spot, but let's leave our big white truck sitting right in front of the gate. Surely he'll never think to look for us here. What kind of shit is that? But how dangerous could it be, right? Just get some dirt samples and head home. But then there's the one guy in the group who wholeheartedly believes that they're looking for the portal to hell. And I'm sorry, but what in the actual Did he just really wait until the middle of night when they are camped out in the woods 5 miles from the location to share that information? That probably would have been nice to know. Oh, I don't even know, maybe before we even signed up for this shit. Even Sean forgot all about the well to hell stuff as soon as they found the coal that they were looking for. And these are supposed to be smart people, but they somehow managed not to notice one incredibly important detail. The power for the electric fence was inside the fence, because it was built to keep people out. But the power for the fence over the hole was outside of the hole, which can only mean that it was built to keep something in. Right about there is where you say, I've seen all I needed to see here, and go back to the lab and put some more dirt into test tubes or whatever the hell it is you guys do. But hearing the cries of 1,000 lost souls and then immediately turning your back on the hole with your foot caught in the damn rope is not the smartest idea, to say the least. Honestly, you just might as well have jumped right in there at that point and saved the mole people all the trouble. Someone obviously went to great lengths to make sure that whatever's in the hole never got out. But then these idiots came along and just opened it right up without a second thought. Which is great news for the rest of the world, I'm sure. Thank you, greedy scientists. You've done it again! If the guy at the store was right about one thing, it's that they really should have stayed back in the city where they came from. After everything that we've just seen here, I think that it's pretty obvious that he wasn't just trying to scare them away. He was trying to help them out. But now it looks like they're going to have to learn that lesson the hard way. So, sorry Terry, but you just kind of f***ed up. Ari and Jamie instantly spring into action, grabbing their climbing gear in the hopes that they can make it to Terry before it's too late. Grabbing the air quality meter from Darren, they hook up their lines and drop down into the pit, slowly lowering themselves into the darkness until they finally come to a stop at the bottom of the cave. As they look around, they realize that they're in the middle of an enormous cavern, but there's no sign of Terry anywhere in sight. Suddenly, something darts across the cave in the darkness behind them, and at the same time, the two up on the surface notice the same truck from the day before, angrily speeding towards them. The driver gets out, already holding a shotgun, shouting at the men to get away from the hole. Darren tries his best to calmly explain the situation, but this dude is hearing none of it. And he's a lot less worried about their friends than he is about what might escape. Realizing that they're in danger, Ari tells Jamie that they just need to get out of there. He hesitates at first, not wanting to leave Terry behind, but the gas levels are so bad that they'll all be dead in a matter of minutes. So he has no choice but to listen to what she's saying. Meanwhile, on the surface, the man pulls out a knife and starts to cut one of the ropes, threatening to shoot Darren if he tries to stop him. Seeing an opportunity, Sean picks up a rock and clubs him over the back of the head. He's terrified that he might have killed the man, but Darren reassures him that he's just unconscious, and the others manage to pull themselves to safety just a few seconds later. They quickly notice that Terry is not with them, but nobody wants to stick around until this guy's friends show up. So they decide to take his truck and call for help when they can find a safer place. Darren takes off speeding down the path back through the woods, but he's so busy arguing with Sean that he ends up wrecking it straight into a ditch only 2 minutes up the road. Their only choice is to keep going back on foot towards the gate where they first came in, and to make matters even worse, they're starting to hear more of those bizarre noises coming from somewhere out in the forest. It's after dark when the injured man finally starts to wake up, taking a minute to remember what just happened. Realizing that there's a breach in the tunnels, he immediately grabs his radio and calls for backup, but before he can tell his crew the location, he's suddenly attacked by one of the monsters, paralyzing him with its claw and dragging him off into the shadows. That makes 4 victims down with 6 more to go. Okay, and this right here is why we don't mess with caves, especially caves in the Appalachian Mountains. All that they had to do was drive calmly down the road and they would have been home free, but now their only choice is to escape into the woods on foot, and it won't be easy now that the creatures have gotten loose. If they're going to survive, they need to start making the right decisions, and the best way to do that is by understanding what we're up against. Although we haven't gotten a real good look at the creatures yet, knowing that they live down in those tunnels can actually tell us a lot about them. The caves are dark, making vision less important, which means that they'll most likely have bad eyesight, or even have lost their eyes altogether. If they do still have any, then they'll likely be extremely sensitive to even small amounts of light, allowing them to see in almost total darkness. Instead of using their vision, they probably rely on other senses to hunt. This could be anything from sensitivity to sounds or vibrations, a heightened sense of smell or chemical detection, and even heat sensitivity to pick up on their prey's thermal signatures. Besides their senses, they also have formidable physical adaptations like sharpened claws for digging and climbing, and an insect-like exoskeleton to protect them from hazards of the harsh underground environment. Now, since we have no idea how many creatures there are or how tough it would be to fight one, their best bet is going to be to avoid encountering them for as long as possible. If they're sensitive to light, then their flashlights will most likely attract them. But Ari here has a night vision scope. Yeah, they need to shut off their lights and create a single file line, keeping one hand on the backpack of the guy in front of them so that nobody gets separated and lost in the dark. Ari can lead the way with the night vision, while Jamie guards their rears with the Glock, allowing them to quickly deal with any threats at both angles. The sound of the pistol going off will most likely attract more creatures, so they should only use it as a last resort. In the meantime, Darren and Sean should find something to use as a weapon as well, just in case they end up needing one. The key is to move at a steady yet cautious pace. Not so slow that they're not getting anywhere, but not so fast that they're making a ton of noise, since there is an extremely high likelihood that the creatures are attracted to even the slightest sounds. If a creature gets too close, then we can use those same senses against them by throwing a flashlight as a distraction. The combination of noise and light should draw the creature away, allowing them to escape while it's distracted. If they have to fight, then it's important to remember that they probably have a hardened exoskeleton, which means that you're going to need to aim for any weak points that you see in order to get a good hit. As for the others, they're hustling back through the woods when they hear the emergency sirens start to go off all around the town. They can hear the creatures getting closer, so Ari instructs everyone to turn off their flashlights and move as quickly as possible, following behind as she leads the way with a night vision scope. Everything starts out smoothly enough, but they don't make it very far before one of the monstrosities suddenly lunges straight at Jamie from out of the darkness, forcing him to take it down with a shot of his pistol. All of a sudden, a second creature dives on top of Sean, pulling him away before the others can save him. One of them goes after Ari next, but she clubs it with the scope and takes off running through the trees, where they finally spot another truck passing by on the road up ahead. They're able to wave them down just in time, climbing into the bed of the truck as the woman in the back opens fire on the creatures. And once they're all on board, she gives the signal for the driver to pull away. The others are safe for now, but it looks like Sean didn't make it, and that makes 5 victims down with 5 more to go. The rescuers take the 3 of them up the road to their compound, where they discover that there's an entire group of people living out there in the forest. After pulling them into one of the buildings, an older man slams the door shut behind them, demanding to know who they are and why they came looking for the mine. Stepping forward, Darren tries his best to explain, promising the man that they're only a team of scientists doing research. He's suspicious at first, but decides to take their word for it after hearing how Ari managed to find the trail. That's when they realize that they're speaking to Paul Shutman, one of the original founders of the mining company. But nowadays, he says that his only job is protecting the rest of the world from the creatures that they woke up. Just then, they get a call on the radio saying that the woods are swarming with creatures. The lookouts think that there must be a breach in one of the sinkholes, but they still aren't sure exactly where. Speaking up, Ari says that she can show them, hoping that there still might be a chance to get their friends back if they're able to reach the pit. Paul sends 2 of his people to go with them, instructing them to find the hole and seal off the breach before more of the creatures can escape. But what they don't realize yet is that none of them are coming back from this mission alive. As soon as they set foot out the door, Darren here starts loudly arguing with this girl, Shelby, immediately drawing the attention of one of the creatures. Everyone scrambles to take cover behind a trailer, and that's when Shelby gets another call warning them to stay inside the safe house. It's obviously a little too late for that now, and the old man Elroy spots a bunch of the creatures closing in. Knowing that he's too slow to run, he decides that he's going to buy them some time instead, taking the bottle and setting off a huge explosion as the others make a run for another building at the top of the hill, making 6 victims down with 4 more to go. The survivors take cover inside of an old abandoned bunkhouse, and they can still hear the creatures searching for them in the darkness outside. Shelby comes face to face with one when she peeks through the window, but luckily the creatures are blind and can't see her. Confused, Jamie questions why she can't just use her rifle on them, but the girl explains that the sound of the gunfire will only end up attracting more. Just when it looks like the coast is clear, Shelby's radio loudly goes off, alerting the monsters to their exact location. Terrified, she tells the others that they can't let the creatures get a hold of them, or else they'll paralyze you and drag you down into one of their burrows. Just then, the door slowly creaks open as one of the monstrosities begins to make its way inside, forcing the group to quickly move over to the next room. Okay, well, I think we all saw that one coming. This little rescue attempt lasted approximately 5 seconds before it turned into an all-out show. But the truth is that their plan was terrible from the start. Like, first off, why go out on foot? You've got a perfectly good truck sitting right there. I get that it's loud, but surely it would be easier to drive to the location, have someone quickly seal it back up while the others hold off any creature attacks, and then just drive back to the base instead of marching through the woods with nothing but some damn Molotov cocktails and a dream, right? They've been fighting these things for 50 years, and the most creative thing that they've been able to come up with were electric fences? Plus, it looks like the creatures were already working on breaking through before the scientists even arrived. Meaning that it was only a matter of time before this ended up happening. Instead of arming themselves with rifles that they can't use because of the sound, they should have spent their time making tools to exploit the creatures' natural weaknesses. We recently learned that the creatures don't have any eyes, meaning that using light against them won't work. However, they are highly sensitive to sound, and we should be using that sensitivity against them. By now, every single person in Paul's group should have a portable sonic device like the one that the Abbott family used in A Quiet Place Part 2, designed to emit extremely high-frequency sounds that overwhelm the creature's hearing, allowing you to escape or stun locking them long enough for you to land a critical hit. Now that the creatures already know where they are, there's no reason not to use every weapon in their arsenal, including the rifle, but that doesn't mean that taking them down will be easy. Considering the creature's insect-like nature, we can make some guesses about how tough they are in a fight. Here in the Appalachian Mountains, one species of insect with the strongest exoskeleton that you can find is the eastern Hercules beetle, which can withstand several hundred times its own body weight in pressure and force. If you scaled one of them up to the size of a large human, their exoskeleton would also see a huge increase in strength. This means that their knife, any improvised weapons, and even Jamie's handgun won't do them much good unless they aim for weak points, like the creature's exposed ears or inner torso. They should still try to place shots as carefully as possible to get the most out of their ammo. I hate to say it, actually, no I don't, but if the situation gets bad, then I wouldn't hesitate to use Shelby here as a meat shield while the rest of us escape. Just make sure to take her rifle this time instead of leaving it behind. Using some metal pans to create a loud noise, they're able to momentarily distract the creatures as they run back for the exit, but it's padlocked shut, forcing them to kick down the door to a storage closet. In the chaos, Jamie accidentally falls straight through the floor, ending up in a crawl space beneath the building. Realizing that this might be their only chance to escape, the rest of the group quickly follows him in, and they begin crawling their way through the tunnels with Ari taking the lead. The path eventually widens up until they find themselves right back in one of the creature's burrows. Before they can get far, Shelby decides that now it's her turn for a big heroic moment, handing Ari a belt with a few frag grenades attached as she goes to create a distraction. Ari tries to stop her, but the girl has already made up her mind, and she runs off down the tunnel yelling as loud as she can as the creatures begin to chase after her, making 7 victims down with 3 more to go. The others keep searching for an exit until they come to a spot where somebody set up a makeshift barricade. There's a small hole where they're able to squeeze through, and Darren says that they should cover it up with some debris as a way to slow the monsters down. A swarm of creatures is already closing in by the time that they get it in place, and Jamie yells for one of the hand grenades to take a few of them out. He pulls the pin, but one of the monsters stops him before he can throw it, causing the explosion to go off right near their feet. The barricade protects Ari and Darren, but Jamie is mortally wounded in the blast, and they can only watch as one of the creatures drags him away, making 8 victims down with 2 more to go. There's only one direction left for the survivors to go, and it leads them through a long, winding passage that makes it difficult for the creatures to follow, eventually opening up into a large cave. Darren refuses to go any further, so Ari leaves him with the remaining grenade and heads up for the surface, saying that she'll come back for him and the others as soon as she can find help. Somewhere else on the hillside, Ari finally emerges from one of the tunnels, and she can hear the sounds of a raging battle happening down in the valley below. As she's making her way back towards the compound, she hears one of the monsters groaning in the darkness somewhere nearby, forcing her to take cover underneath a pile of junk. Nervous, she stays as quiet as she possibly can while the creature begins to search for her, until it slowly shuffles past her hiding spot just a few feet away. Ari waits until it looks like the coast is clear, but as soon as she steps out from cover, the creature lunges from the darkness and knocks her out, dragging her back down into the underground lair. This time, when Ari wakes up, she finds herself back in one of the burrows, and she's lying right next to Darren, who was also captured by the creatures. Luckily, he still has the grenade, but they're both too paralyzed to reach for it. Looking around, Ari notices a different, even more terrifying creature looming over them, and that's when she hears a familiar voice. It's Sean, who's somehow still alive, and explains that the creatures reproduce like ants, saying that the thing in front of them is their queen. Seconds later, 2 of the creatures come and drag Sean away, pulling him over to be fed to the queen herself. The man struggles, screaming as the giant monster slowly clenches down on him with a worm-like mouth filled with hundreds of razor-sharp teeth, until his entire body is enveloped and he's devoured before their very eyes. Finally, Ari manages to reach the grenade just as the creatures come for her next. At the same time, Darren wiggles his phone out of his pocket, setting off an alarm that distracts them long enough for her to pull the pin. Reaching up above her head, Ari shoves the grenade into the queen's mouth, diving out of the way just as it explodes and kills the beast from the inside. Running to her backpack, she grabs her supplies and helps Darren get to his feet, and the 2 of them begin to stumble back down the tunnels as an army of pissed-off creatures comes to chase them down. Okay, so that was insane. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how lucky they are that they've set off not 1, but 2 hand grenades inside of a highly unstable coal mine and haven't been killed by a cave-in yet? Using 1 to kill the queen was a sick move, and it's a good thing that her paralysis conveniently wore off right at the exact moment when she needed it most. But if there's one thing that we've learned over the years, it's that there's no better survival strategy than having some good plot armor. Someone on the militia's side might want to start coming up with a way to counter that claw. On their evidence board, they have it labeled as a poison claw, which helps to explain why they haven't been able to figure out a way to get rid of these things for the past 50 years. In this case, the venom must be a highly potent, fast-acting neurotoxin like that of a scorpion or a cone snail. Instead of running around in their old mining clothes, they should get some guys who are good at welding to put together some shields and armor, giving them some more protection against getting poked. Besides that, they should attempt to capture one of the creatures, or at least get a hold of its arm, and use it to develop an anti-venom. Then they could equip all of their people with an auto-injector similar to an EpiPen that they can carry with them in the field, allowing them to use it on anyone who gets stabbed with a claw before they're dragged off into the creature's hive. That doesn't do much for Ari and Darren here, who still need to escape in one piece. And now they have a whole army of angry cave dwellers coming after them. There's no way that they could possibly fight this many, which means that their only option is to run for their lives. But they can still be proactive about it by trying to navigate through tight spaces that might slow the creatures down. Another problem is that they have no idea which way they're supposed to be going, but they really only have a few good options here. The most obvious one is to keep moving forward, since they'll probably find the most exits near the top of the cave system. If they can figure out which way the air is blowing, this can help lead them to an exit as well. As a last resort, I might try to find a way back to the underground river that they brought her in on, since water usually flows to an exit, and hopefully the boat is still nearby. As they're sprinting through the caves, the two of them somehow manage to find their way back to the chamber where they first came down. And as luck would have it, the rope is still there. This gives the two of them a ticket back to the surface, but they don't have much time before the creatures are going to catch up. Tossing down her backpack, they begin scrambling to put on their climbing gear just as the creatures are about to reach the chamber. And Ari starts to climb up first, with Darren following close behind. She has a pretty good lead on him by the time that he finally manages to get hooked up, and he's still too badly injured to be able to climb the rope quickly. Darren doesn't make it far before one of the monsters starts to climb up the rope directly underneath him until he's able to grab hold of his leg. Unable to help in any other way, Ari hands Darren her knife, and he immediately jams it as hard as he can into the side of the creature's head. But this only seems to piss it off more. With more of the creatures closing in, Darren realizes that he's going to get both of them killed unless he does something drastic. And before Ari can stop him, he reaches up and cuts the rope, sending him plummeting back down to the cave floor. All that Ari can do is watch as the creatures surround and devour his body, but he's bought her a chance to escape. And that makes 9 victims down with just one more to go. Ari still has a long way to go, but that's when the cashier from the very first store that they stopped in appears at the top of the pit. This dude is actually about to cut the rope and let her fall, but lucky for her, Paul shows up just in time, shoving the guy away and offering to help her up. Ari keeps climbing as quickly as she can, but they're too distracted to realize that one of the creatures has just noticed them. As soon as Ari reaches the top, Paul pulls the woman to safety just as the creature is about to close in. For a moment, it looks like they might be in for some trouble, but nope. Paul's boys show up with flamethrowers and shotguns just in time, and completely annihilate the thing in a hail of flame and buckshot as the two of them scramble to safety. Paul asks her what happened to the rest of the group, but Ari explains that she was the only survivor. Back at his truck, he reveals that he was the man who lost his son during the first attack all those years ago, and says that he and the others have been fighting the creatures ever since, trying to keep them contained down there in the mines. After seeing her skills firsthand, the man invites Ari to join them, asking her to stay and help them fight the monsters. At first, it seems like she's going to turn him down, but after grabbing more supplies from her truck, she hops back into the passenger seat and tells him that she'll take the deal, having finally learned a very important lesson. If your career as a trail guide doesn't work out, then you can always just get a job fighting the mole people instead. All right, that was a pretty cool movie. I mean, I really liked the way it was shot. I can't really speak for the characters too much because, they were they were making some interesting decisions, but The Devil Below, definitely worth recommending. Let me know down in the comments what you guys would have done differently. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.